Serious fans who have been engrossed in a fictional universe so much you could probably earn a degree about it. What plot holes, logical inconsistencies, and the like cannot be reconciled and bother you to no end? In Fallout, the fact that no one decides to start cleaning after 200 years. Like, yeah, I get it's the apocalypse, but why is a 200-year-old skeleton in your house? This is what pissed me the hell off about base building in Fallout 4. Apparently people forgot how to measure and make actual squares with wood, because even building brand new structures means creating a dilapidated shithole. In the Harry Potter universe they can regrow bones, drink potions to make you an exact replica of another being, and other medical miracles, but Harry has to wear glees to fix his eyesight. Also, how does Moaning Myrtle never notice the many times the Chamber of Secrets is opened? Like by Ginny, for example. In Harry Potter, how the duck did Hagrid's tiny father have sex with a giant? I can always picture him just crawling right in and having a wank. It keeps me up at night. Removed. Paw Patrol. So hear me out, I have 3 kids, oldest 10, youngest 2. I have been watching this show for a very long time. Every episode is an inconsistency. Let's just put aside the fact that an entire city leaves their emergency services to a group of puppies and a 12-year-old who seems to not have parents. Why do these puppies talk and the kittens do not? Also, they keep adding puppies. Everest, Tracker, the pirate pup. Do all dogs talk? Now they have superpowers in some episodes. Why do the puppy cars have steering wheel? Also, bubble guppies. They are underwater but bound by gravity. I saw an episode where they are swimming along, watching a hot air balloon float away, and wondering how they can stop it. Just swim up there. The Walking Dead. Gasoline is only good in cars for 6 months, in cans maybe a few years, in pumps, 5 years. They should not have been able to use cars after like year 6. In Zombieland, a comedy, whenever the cast would go into a building they would make noise to draw out and deal with the zombies first, then do whatever they wanted. Yet not once does TWD group ever clear out a building first. They stumble into them and someone always either gets bit or nearly gets bit. World War Z, it took them 5 minutes to realize magazines strapped on your arms protects you from bites, and it seems to be a TWD rule to only wear t-shirts and maybe some leather if you're cool enough. If you stick a pocket knife in a skull, you need both hands and a boot on the head to get it back. And if your weapon had nails on it, it's gone after 1 use. Barbed wire, not a vast improvement. You risk getting it caught very easily. And finally, they have established multiple times the walkers smell like dead, rotting flesh. If you walk into a room or house that smells like dead, rotting flesh, you know what the hell is in there. And if you're walking around the woods and suddenly smell dead, rotting flesh, you should know what the hell is near you. There is no reason they should ever sneak up on anyone. Stopped watching TWD after Terminus. The one thing that annoyed me was that the characters never thought about using Michonne's strategy of chopping the jaws off of the zombies while they were living in the prison. They could have built a jawless zombie pen all along the perimeter of the jail, essentially creating a zombie shield, as the zombies wouldn't be able to smell any humans at all. In X-Files there are like 3 different versions of Samantha's abduction, and they all significantly impact the plot and the way Mulder reacts to certain situations. It's my favorite show of all time, but I've always found it annoying that they kept retconning that aspect of the mythic. I know why they did it, but it was dumb emo. I watched all of the X-Files, including the 2 movies, and I still have no ducking idea whether or not aliens exist, or if it's just a government conspiracy. Pirates of the Caribbean. This is annoying me to no end, but in Dead Men Tell No Tales they completely rewrite Jack's history by saying he got his compa from his old captain, when in Dead Man's Chest it's explained that he got it from Shia Dama. She literally says, "Why didn't you use the compa I gave you? I get it. Thanks for the award, kind stranger." Even worse, in a deleted scene from At World's End, and later in a book, it was established that Jack wasn't always a pirate. He used to be a trader, until the East India Company hired him to deliver a load of slaves to the Caribbean. Jack couldn't do it and freed them, which is why the company branded him as a pirate as punishment, and burned his ship down. Jack then made a deal with Davy Jones to get his ship back. That's why the pearl was black from the fire, and why Davy Jones wanted Jack to give him 100 souls for his freedom, because Jack had freed 100 slaves. And then in Dead Men he just was a pirate from day one. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. How TF does Tiddles know what kind of items Mickey and the gang will need that day? Does he have some kind of crystal ball dedicated to Mouse Echo tools? We even got to see inside the Mouse Echo, but it didn't tell us anything aside from liquid light makes it run. Sorry, I have 2 young kids. I've seen every episode at least a dozen times. They've never addressed this and it drives me crazy. To add on, why does Tiddles not become alive more often? Sorry, I forgot the term, because I only watched the show as a kid and it's still bothering me since then. He's shown to like participating in Mickey's activities and still able to serve his helper role during that time, so why have we never seen Tiddles get a face more often in the show? So I'm actually a really big fan of the movie Cars, and honestly you don't need to be a big fan to think of logic inconsistencies. Like in Cars 3 they have spray bottles. How do they spray them? They have paint jobs, so if they are stripped from their paint are they naked? Well apparently not, because in the Mate a Tall Tale short where he goes to Japan, when that one car loses the race he is stripped from his modifications, and he acts buried, like he was naked or something. Why do some buildings have regular sized doors? A car obviously can't fit through one. I could go on, and at this point you probably stopped reading, because you were already able to think of some of these. Edit. So everyone is sharing their headcanon, so I figured I would share mine. So I have always felt that the cars have their own world or universe. I have always felt they evolved like humans, and maybe something that wasn't a car, but similar were the cavemen who evolved into the cars today. I know it is boring, but I just find it the easiest for me to wrap my head around. I want to know how baby cars are born. How do they build anything? Are there living cranes who are born and die in this life, and only this life? Was Lightning born as a race car, or was he modified? How much of the car can you replace? Can a car have its entire engine replaced? How do they die in the first place? They can literally be repaired. How did Sally get a tramp stamp, and why was it showing like she was bending over, then never reappeared for the rest of the movie? I thought they were painted. Maybe I'm thinking way too much into this. Supernatural. Suddenly souls that have been to hell can't go to heaven. Main characters have bounced between both throughout 15 seasons. Ike didn't Dean do some pretty heinous stuff during his first trip to hell? Like what redeems you enough to get into heaven after that? Especially after you pretty much said duck you to God's universe breaking turbo curse. Pokemon. Oh, where to begin? Let's just talk about Cubone. Cubone is said to wear the skull of its dead mother. However, if you breed Cubone, it's born with the skull already on its head, and its mother is still alive and well. So how is Cubone wearing its mother's skull? I love the theory that all the Pokédex entries are written by the 10-year-olds the professors send out, so that's why you get Pokemon that are supposedly hotter than the sun, or the 80-foot whale that only weighs like 1,000 pounds, because kids have no sense of physics or scale. Edit. It seems I was wrong about Wailord being off. I'll admit my interest in Pokemon was really only the first 2 generations. How about things like Pidgeot flying at Mach 2, Onix weighing 463 pounds. Raiden is listed 6 feet 3 264 pounds and states Raiden's horn can crush even uncut diamonds. One sweeping blow of its tail can topple a building. This Pokemon's hide is extremely tough. Even direct cannon hits don't leave a scratch. Harry Potter. There are several plot holes, but the #1 for me is in HP 5 Order of the Phoenix. Sirius gives Harry a gift before Harry leaves headquarters. It's a mirror that allows them to communicate. Why the hell would he not tell Harry to talk to him via the mirror? They talk via extremely dangerous flu network. Not only that, but Harry could have simply used the mirror to check on Sirius when he suspects that Voldy has him at the ministry. Sirius should have suggested they talk via the mirror rather than flu network. I always took it as Harry forgot about the mirror, and when it breaks at the end he becomes even more guilty because he realizes he had a foolproof way of checking in on Sirius, and instead of using that went full Harry Potter style and went with the significantly harder plan. You've probably heard this one before, but in Harry Potter, Hogwarts was built before the invention of the sink, or basin, whatever you want to call it. However, the Chamber of Secrets Built at the same time as the rest of the castle, uses a sink as its method of entry. So how did Salazar Slytherin create an entrance to the chamber using a form of indoor plumbing that wouldn't exist for centuries to come? Contractor, hey, we found this secret entrance to some cave while we were remodeling the bathroom. What should we do? Boss, we are not being paid to do anything below ground. If it was secret before, just make it look secret when you're done. In the original King Kong, apparently the locals built this giant wall around their city to keep Kong out, right? So why is there a Kong-sized door in the wall? At some point they must have said, we need to build a wall big enough to keep out the giant ape. I know, let's put a huge door in it, and then we'll just lock it. Removed. Arthur the animated kids show. Why do anthropomorphic animal people keep regular animals as pets? Like, Arthur and his family of aardvark people have a pet dog that is just a regular little dog. Even though there are dog people characters? What the hell? We can only conclude that these pets are actually just adopted children who have been kept in a non-verbal state and trained for obedience through years of relentless abuse. I don't even know where to start with Kingdom Hearts. Edit. Why the duck did you give me gold? I mean thanks, but seriously. Edit 2. Gonna just disable Embark's replies everybody. I remember a few years ago I watched a video called Kingdom Hearts Simplified. That video went for 1.5 hours. BBC's Merlin is my all-time favorite show, but it was riddled with plot holes and inconsistencies. To me though, the most frustrating thing is that Arthur was king for less than 1 season, didn't really achieve much during that time, didn't even legalize magic or anything, but is supposed to be the once and future king of Albion and the guy who brings balance back to Camelot, etc. I love Arthur, and I'm fully certain he could have proven himself worthy of his great destiny and all that, but the series literally never gave him time to do that. He barely even got to be king at all. What was all the build up for? To add on to this, Arthur and Guinevere, I swear, got barely any married lifetime together where she wasn't cursed. I know most things were added for drama and to carry on plot, but damn, leave their relationship alone for a few months. Why isn't the Gra attacking the zombie in Plants vs Zombies? Also, what the hell is Gravibuster and Flowerpot? The Gra doesn't have anything to attack with. The Gravibuster is a fungi. Ask Crazy Dave about the Flowerpot. Oh god, the list for Doctor Who doesn't end. Isn't that sort of built into the show? I'm not a huge fan, but it seems like they embrace that nothing matters in terms of continuity. It seemed like Amy Pond and Rory died so much that it was a twist for me when they actually lived. Bionicle's story was spread and retold throughout different pieces of media, so there were sometimes conflicting versions of events. For example, in the book version of the final battle, the main villain's head was broken in by a piece of a moon, while in the comics the whole thing just got smashed into the back of his head. Edit. Oh, and decanonizing the concept of love didn't make a lot of people happy. Don't forget the whole debacle with the Shadow Tower, where the version of the story we were actually told was decanonized, and the canon version of events was just mentioned in a guidebook somewhere. In Clue, Yvette allegedly crept up behind Mr. Body and killed him with the candlestick, while all of the other guests were examining the cook's body in the kitchen. She then managed to balance the murder weapon perfectly on the door frame so that it would fall on Wadsworth's head. First, she was wearing heels. How's she sneaking up on anybody, let alone Mr. Body, on those hardwood floors? Okay, maybe she took her heels off. That would make sense and easier to sneak. But then, secondly, how'd this 53 French maid manage to perfectly balance a candlestick on the narrow edge of door frame with a standard height of 68? It just doesn't add up. And don't even get me started on how someone of her size would manage to drag a corpse 40 feet, then prop said corpse up against the door without managing to get blood all over herself or the floor. Still, funny movie though. That's right. I hated her so much. And the feel. Flames, flames, flames on the side of my face. Breathing, breathless, heavy breaths, heaving. Steve can carry 4 tons of gold, but not 100 pounds of seeds. I got just under 36 million American tons, but I did a lot of different conversions and may have messed up. What did you use to find that number? I did the weight of a cubic meter of gold x64 for a whole stack, x27, the space in one shulker box, x37, the space in a player's inventory including offhand, and then converted that into tons. How are Vulcans not running all of Starfleet and the Federation? With their very long lifespan compared to humans, once one got a top level position, they would stay there for way longer than most species would. Eventually most positions would end up being them most of the time. Vulcans tend to be insular and not overly ambitious. When Spock was Kirk's first officer, it was very unusual for a Vulcan to be in Starfleet despite their role as co-founders of the Federation. They are just not that interested in it and seem to have handed over a lot of control to humans. The Harry Potter universe. It has so many holes you can drive a truck through them. Fred and George have the Marauders map and never wondered why Peter Pettigrew was with their younger brother all the time. The whole book 5 could have been avoided if they used the truth serum potion or even legilimency to read his mind and find that Voldemort was back. Also, how in the hell did Fred and George figure out the incantation to activate the map? It's like a verbal combination lock with 100 billion possibilities. In Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it was established in season 3, I think lol, that Rosa drives a supercharged R1. That's a Yamaha R1. In a later season, she says something like Yamaha is for pussies, but is seen still driving the same bike. There was another plot hole I noticed with Holt about when he lies. In season 1 Jake catches him lying because his lip moves and they do a slow motion gag. Then later on there's an entire episode that hinges on learning what his till is, which turns out to be using contractions. If there have been 1,000 avatars and Avatar 1 lived 10,000 years ago, then that means that the average avatar lived for only 10 years. I believe 10,000 in summation cultures means the same as uncountably long/infinite to us. Remember that Wan Shi Tong, the owl spirit, is also called by the name he who knows 10,000 things. So Avatar 1 did not literally live 10,000 years ago, he lived a really long time ago. See the Wikipedia article on the subject. Harry Potter. They apparently have one wizard school per country, but far more witches and wizards around than could be accounted for by about 50 kids per year per country, going by their class sizes. Imagine living in a world consisting of the people in your small town only. So are there a lot more schools for wizards? But what? They just suck and are never mentioned? No one that can help out? There are far more, others of which are mentioned already, but that one consistently bugs me for some reason. A potential explanation for this, that I read somewhere, was that Harry's year was smaller and less populated than the others, because when they were born, it was in the middle of a civil war between British wizards. Obviously such circumstances would put anyone off from bearing a child, and so few people were born into that specific year. In the original Star Wars, Obi-Wan's wearing a big robe to hide himself so nobody knows he's a Jedi, but in the prequels they made those robes Jedi robes, so now Obi-Wan is literally walking around in Jedi clothing while trying to hide from the Empire. Edit. I'm sure this thread is dead now, but thanks for the silver. I mean, Obi-Wan lives as a hermit in the desert of Tatooine. The people in Mos aren't the sharpest tools in the shed, so they might not even realize. And he lives virtually isolated from every living being, with a few exceptions every now and then. The only one who knew Obi-Wan used to be a Jedi was Owen after all. Why do the Pokemon you catch suddenly are okay with you capturing them right after they attacked you? I've been a fan of this franchise for a long time and I've been wondering this for years. Because you beat the absolute chiz out of them, and they are terrified of you now. I love Itchy and Scratchy, but in episode 2F09, when Itchy plays Scratchy's skeleton like a xylophone, he strikes the same rib twice in succession, yet he produces two clearly different tones. I mean, what are we to believe? That this is some sort of magic xylophone or something? Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder. A wizard did it. Why the hell didn't the third Hokage tell Naruto about his parents? It would have chilled the kid out and actually he wouldn't be such a ducking turd and a nuisance. The third Hokage had a kid. He would know why a child is acting out. Why wasn't Iruka notified about that? It would have made so much sense. Edit. Holy crap, I didn't think this thing would blow up so casually. That's Reddit for you. The third Hawkeye had a kid. He would know why a child is acting out. He wasn't much of a father to Asuma. Okay, so there's Man the Last Stand and Deadpool exist in the same universe, correct? Why is Man the Last Stand Juggernaut small, while Deadpool Juggernaut is huge? What happened between 2006 and 2018 to make him huge? He started juicing. I grew up with the Bay Transformers films, and while I'll always have a soft spot for the first 3, holy chisel law might be the worst in all of fiction. In the first film, the Allspark, a cube that makes Transformers and the cause of the war, lands on Earth in the early 1900s, and it takes the Autobots and Decepticons 100 years to find Earth. Oh wait, no it doesn't, because they've been on Earth since at least the 1800s, and never thought to look for the very thing the war was all about. Hell, the Primes, basically Transformer gods, built their Sun Eater in Egypt, and were buried on the damn planet. How did they not write Earth down in any records, if it was an important planet to them? Also, did you know that the Transformers were the cause of the space race? And that they were making deals with the CIA and NASA all the way back in the 60s? And they still didn't think to look for Megatron or the Allspark in that time period? Also, the government organization made specifically to research Transformers had no idea about any of that. Oh yeah, Transformers killed the dinosaurs too because Earth was actually being used to mine transformium, which is what Transformers are made out of. Oh yeah, about that. The Allspark did jack shit all along, because other aliens made Transformers, so the war was pointless. And Primes are knights now, not gods for some reason. Speaking of knights, did you know that Transformers were at King Arthur's Round Table? They also fought in both world wars, the American Revolution, they killed Hitler, served the Japanese Empire, etc. All along because why the duck not? Also, a goddess named Quintessa made the Transformers, not those other aliens, and not the Allspark, to fight Unicron. Hoss Unicron. Well, here's the Thanos of the Transformers universe. And has been Earth all along. Yep, Earth was a Transformer too. Also, Cybertron, the planet they are from, is somehow still alright, even though it got sucked into a literal black hole in Transformers 3 and blew the duck up. Oh yeah, about that hole it took 100 years for Autobots to come to Earth thing. Well, not only was Optimus and the gang on Earth the whole time, they also forgot about that and didn't come to Earth till the 80s, which is still earlier than they arrived in 2007. So we have 3 different time points for Optimus Army coming to Earth, and 2 different time points for Megatrons. It's a ducking cluster duck. Transformium. Okay, I'm done. In Skyrim, everyone uses gold coins. However, you can learn a spell called Transmute, or that allows you to turn iron into gold, essentially allowing you to print your own money. Theoretically, every advanced alteration mage would know this spell, yet it is literally never mentioned, and has no effect on the game, even though it should be wreaking havoc on the economy. The coins are minted with a specific design. They are not just lumps of gold. They may not even be pure gold. The main thing is their perceived value as currency, rather than raw value as a material. The worst goddamn side mission was the Gowl family in Fallout 4. Hey, can you go find my son? You find him down the street in a fridge. Like, you mean to tell me this kid spent 200 years in a fridge and no one bothered looking? Edit. Someone who knows their chiz more than I do pointed out that according to Fallout lore, Gowls have to eat, so therefore the Gowl child may have not been stuck in the fridge for 200 years. Also, they age. They lived in a bad neighborhood. Seriously though, would you search random fridges for kids? Avatar: The Last Airbender. During a specific scene during the near end of Book 3, Sokka, Toph, and Suki take over an enemy airship. They proceed to gather all the remaining enemies into a bomb bay and drop them all into water. This airship then continues to fly, steer, ascend, and do everything without any crew. This is a giant hot air balloon made of metal, and scenes showed all different kinds of workers from engineers to communications. How the hell did it fly flawlessly with only a captain? Tongue in cheek here, they did only keep flying that one for a very short time before, well, ruining it lol. Who the ever-living duck is Azor Ahai? Jon, Stannis, Daenerys, Hot Pie. Who? In the books, I feel like they're building towards the point that no one is as Ahei and the stories/prophecies are used to manipulate and motivate people, like as an allegory for the media or something, but hopefully done away. That doesn't make it totally silly, but we will never know. The TV series kinda touches on stories/prophecies with Tyrion's Bran as king because stories, but I feel like it was way too positive about it, whereas the books didn't feel like they were headed that way. So either Benioff and Weiss make bad choices, or that was the intended point and the books will hopefully make it more meaningful. Fallout. How do people survive in the capital wasteland? Nobody grows anything, and eating 200-year-old irradiated pre-watches cannot be good for you, and there is only so much. There are a few farms around the capital wasteland, and the presence of forces like the Enclave and Brotherhood of Steel likely come with their own stockpiles. Not to mention that the larger settlements likely have some manner of getting food, be it by growing it themselves or trading. And this is, of course, ignoring all the irradiated wildlife that, while not exactly the best for you, is still a source of meat should you have a good enough weapon and the skills to use it. In American Dad, Toshi only speaks Japanese despite the rest of his family only speaking English. He can understand English perfectly fine, but on the rare occasion he tries to speak it he messes up. At one point he is shown being haunted by an ancient samurai ghost who speaks to him in Japanese. Toshi apparently is unable to understand him, since he responds with nonsense. The writers have not really explained this issue. In the wrestling episode, Toshi's glees are knocked off and land on a random jock spectator who immediately begins to play a violin, the instrument Toshi is shown playing at home on occasion. I'm convinced that his glees are cursed and give him all of his stereotypical traits and converts his speech into Japanese. I need closure. Don't forget that Francine's sister Gwen was said to be 3 years younger than her in an early episode, then appears in a later episode as her screw-up older sister. In I Love Lucy I was always bothered by the same character being named Carol Appleby and Lillian Appleby interchangeably, and in season 4, the Hollywood arc, both within a handful of episodes of each other. Also, for the longest time, since she rediscovered her saxophone, Lucy only ever knew how to play Glowworm until they moved to the country, and when practicing with Fred, Ethel and Little Ricky, she said the only song she ever knew was Sweet Sue. Which brings me to my next point. In that same episode, Ethel is bad at the piano, and said she only ever learned the song Common Round the Mountain, and never learned Sweet Sue. Problem is Ethel was good at the piano. She played and sang Sweet Sue with Fred Ricky and Lucy in an early season. It wasn't until a later season, when she and the Wednesday Afternoon Fine Arts League formed an orchestra, that she lost her ability and could barely play 12th Street Rag. Also, everyone and their mother on that show had one of two phone numbers Circle 7, 2099 and Murray Hill 5, 1999. Edit. Also, Freddie Fillmore, the actor's mannerisms inspired the Myes guy on The Simpsons, has met Lucy and Ricky multiple times on multiple iterations of his radio programs, Mr. and Mrs. Quiz, females are fabulous, etc. Close bracket. Either he's horrible at keeping one on the air consistently, or he was that era's Ryan Seacrest. You watch I Love Lucy like how I watch Andy Griffith's show. The fact that there are 2 Rumpelstiltskins in the Shrek universe really annoys me, and many people seem to not have noticed. We all know the Rumpelstiltskin from the last movie, but in Shrek the Third, when Prince Charming enters the poison apple and starts talking to other villains, he actually talks to Rumpelstiltskin, but it's not the same that appears in Shrek Forever After. Yep, really annoys me. And also 2 Sleeping Beauty characters, cause she cameos in Shrek 2. Also in Shrek 2, if Donkey drank the potion, and it was also supposed to affect your true love, why didn't Dragon transform? Deleted. This is honestly my favorite response in the whole thread. I have never watched Peppa Pig in my life, but now I want to know who the cows have adopted. Warcraft. Other and Tyrannus might just be the most slow and useless characters in the history of the franchise, and Arthas might just be the most efficient man I ever read about one. Arthas wants to kill everyone in the city, Other disagrees. Arthas strips him of his titles and calls his actions treason too. Other doesn't lift finger to stop Arthas or protect the people in the city. 3. Instead of going directly to the king, he waits 3 days to see if Arthas really acted upon his word and to discover where he went. 4. Arthas created an expedition with soldiers, supplies, and ships without the king knowing in only 3 days. 5. 1 month later, he explored the region, rescued a dwarf expedition, destroyed an undead base and set up an entire base for his forces. 6. Only after all that, the emissary arrived to recall the army, either with a zeppelin or with a portal, both methods faster than boats. And that whole situation could have been avoided if Arthas just told Other what he had seen in Andorhal. Hell, Jaina saw the same thing and she didn't say anything either. Actually the reverse. I cannot get over how the not taking the eagles in Lord of the Rings is considered a plot hole. The literal whole theme of the movie is that Sauron is searching for the ring, and that Fear secretly taking it to destroy it. They can't have him know that Fear taking it back to his lair to destroy it, and he doesn't suspect where Fear going, because he can't imagine anyone who wouldn't keep that type of power. If they flew in guns blazing on the eagles, all would be lost, not the least of which the very theme of the story. That sometimes the smallest and the most humble are the ones needed most. It kills me when people step all over the movie this way. 1. Did you not pick up on any underlying, obvious Tolkien theme? And 2. Gandalf tells them like 800 times to keep the ring secret and safe. Dear mercy, people. Or, thank you so much, Op, for finally giving me a place to say this and subsequently be ripped to shreds because people want an eagle/fell beast aerial battle that world wrecked everything Tolkien stood for. I know him. We commune through the trees. In The Hobbit, the eagles save Bilbo and co, but refuse Gandalf's request to fly them to the Lonely Mountain on the basis that men would fire arrows at them. So there's no way they're going to fly all the way to Mordor. Deleted. It ducked me up as a child when I finally realized that Archie was not drawn/written by one person. Don't know how I didn't realize, since it's pretty clear from the style of the art. I was absolutely obsessed with these comics. I learned how to read from them. It begged my mom to buy me the newest ones at the grocery store every time we went. I'd take them into the shower with me until they got all gross and pulpy from getting wet. I even would go to second-hand bookstores and look for them there, since they'd have cool retro-ish ones that sometimes had stories I hadn't seen reruns. There are probably close to 300 in boxes at my parents' house somewhere. But yeah, all that to say there is zero consistency across the board with most of these characters' backstories. Sometimes there are siblings that randomly appear and are never mentioned again. Parents' jobs change without explanation. Character origin stories are a mess. For example, there are several plot lines in different comics where Veronica moves to town and is a hot new girl. But then in the Lil Archie comics she's always been there the whole time. Used to bug the chiz out of me. Basically anything in Warhammer 40k lore that has to do with scale of measurement. You gotta take the inconsistencies as being part of the setting of a 10,000-year-old crumbling galactic empire in which ignorance is a virtue. Everything is canon, not everything is true. In Friends, the characters' ages and birthdays never sync up. Rachel tells Gunnar her birthday is in May, then later says she's an Aquarius. And assuming she is close to Monica's age around the pilot episode, which is 26 to 27, she doesn't turn 30 until season 6. Yep, and Ross was 29 for 3 seasons. Star Trek deals with time travel a lot and it only sometimes makes sense. Usually it can be reconciled with some general rules. Timelines in Trek seem to be linear. You can go into the past and change things, and it doesn't just create an alternate timeline, it changes the one you are in. This is most easily seen in Star Trek First Contact. When the Enterprise is stuck in a temporal rift as Borg in the past annihilate Earth, they see the planet in the present immediately get annihilated. However, there are an infinite amount of alternate timelines and universes, 3 of which are most prominent. Prime Timeline is the TV shows. Kelvin Timeline is the 2009 J.J. Abrams reboot. Mirror Universe is just an alternate universe that appears occasionally. Things start to get confusing when the shows actually do time travel. As I've established, timelines in Star Trek are linear. However, the Kelvin timeline actually occurred because a supernova in the prime timeline shot a bunch of pissed off Romulans from the 2380s back in time to the 2230s of an alternate dimension where they destroyed the Kelvin. What is confusing is that according to the writers and what we see in the movie, this event actually somehow changed history before the Kelvin was destroyed, which is an explanation for why the ships are like twice as big as they should be if they were just regular prime timeline ships. The real explanation is that J.J. Abrams thought Star Trek ships were too small and made them bigger because he has no sense of scale. In Star Trek Voyager, the finale of the show established that it took around 20 years for the Voyager to get home from the Delta Quadrant. A jaded and bitter Admiral Janeway acquires a Klingon time travel device and goes back in time bearing advanced technology with the intent of bringing Voyager home far earlier and with everyone alive. The problem is, as I've already established, timelines in Star Trek are linear. Literally the moment Admiral Janeway interacts with Captain Janeway and starts to mess with the progress of their voyage, she should cease to exist as the events that led her to that moment no longer happened. Instead, she sticks around long enough to sacrifice herself to destroy the Borg transwarp network and get everyone home safely. Also, earlier in the series a Federation time ship from the 29th century threatened Janeway to stop getting involved in time travel stuff, but they are apparently okay with just letting the 24th century Federation skip around 15 years of weapon development and literally crippling the Borg. And mentioning that, they also let the ship's emergency medical hologram return home with a mobile hologram emitter from the 29th century. Not very good time cops. There's definitely others, but I'll stop here. In Voyager, it's revealed that 7 of 9, and the Borg in general, have a simple cure for organic death. Anyone who dies can be saved within 48 hours. This ability is only used once, and forgotten about forever after. Much like any other innovation, that only works in one episode, and is then forgotten about the next time the same situation occurs. Oh, we are out of power and can't escape. But the shuttlecraft have their own transporter systems running on separate power sources and can get us out of here. But we already solved it that way 2 seasons ago, and we can't do that again. So I guess we'll stay here and fight these monsters and let some red shirts die. In Back to the Future, the Libyans crash into that little kiosk in the parking lot of Lone Pine Mall at the end of the movie. Marty, that is back from the past, and Doc, who was wearing the bulletproof vest, stay in the parking lot as if the Libyans magically disappeared. Sure, the Libyans crashed going over 80 miles an hour in a VW van, but it seems pretty stupid to assume that the people who are trying to kill you are completely incapacitated. Doc also expected a bulletproof vest to be able to resist light rifle fire. Sure it did, but what if one of those bullets would have hit him in the head or legs? The dude is a scientist. You think he would have come up with a more CNC line of defense? In the second SpongeBob movie, someone steals the formula and SpongeBob has a magic page that makes whatever is written in it come true. He uses it to give the gang superpowers to steal the formula back. Well, why doesn't he just write something along the lines of the secret formula and our heroes or magically teleported back to Bikini Bottom or something like that? Why the hell do you choose to have powers to fight for the formula when you could choose to just have the formula? Probably because SpongeBob thought it would be more fun to fight to get back the formula with superpowers. I might be missing something here, but when the room of requirement is discovered to be the place where the DA are meeting to practice defense against the dark arts, Malfoy finds a list of the members inside. It's the one Hermione wrote and made them sign, if memory serves me correctly. When Umbridge takes this Dumbledore, he protects Harry and says it's Dumbledore's army, not Potter's, and so takes all responsibility. However, couldn't they have simply argued that the evidence of an illegal student group was what Malfoy wanted to find, and hence the room had created one for him? And therefore, there was, in all likelihood, no such group in existence? Umbridge was hell-bent on taking Dumbledore down. So I think, even if he used that logic, it won't make sense for her to accept it. Why didn't Voldemort just use a gun to Muggle? The real question is, why didn't Hermione? In Harry Potter, Fred and George give Harry the Marauders map during his 3rd year. This means they had it during Harry and Ron's first and second year. Why did the twins never see the name of dead man Peter Pettigrew nor question why he slept in a bed with Ron? There's no way they missed it, because we know they enjoy pranking Ron, and it only took Harry a few months to notice the name Peter Pettigrew scampering around. In the last book, why didn't the trio just steal food so that they didn't go hungry? It is stated that Hermione doesn't like stealing and even left money for something once, so why not do that multiple times? Petty muggle theft of leftover chicken tenders or bakery muffins wouldn't have attracted Death Eaters, and if they don't want to steal they can leave the money behind. Also, it's stupid that they wouldn't steal when in the same exact book they broke into a bank and busted it to pieces. Morals are morals, but during war this is dumb. Why would all of the professors, even Snape, tell Slytherin and the other houses to go back to their common room in the first book because a troll was loose? It isn't in the Great Hall, and they should have just kept them all inside. Also, Slytherin's common room is in the dungeon, so after Quirrell shouts troll in the dungeon, they should never have been sent back to their house. Hell, even Hufflepuff is near the dungeons, beside the kitchen entrance, so they were unsafe also. In the books, Harry doesn't really see Pettigrew's name on the map, and it was Lupin who saw Pettigrew. There's a theory that only the Marauders can see each other in the map, and maybe that's why the twins didn't see his name. This may also just be another mistake by the movies. I absolutely loved Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it annoyed me greatly how they changed the concept of what was going on with the Avatar state between TLA and TLOK. First it was the Avatar getting all of the knowledge and experience of all the avatars, then they changed it to the Avatar spirit taking control. Neither one is a bad plot device, but it was bad continuity. Agreed. There are quite a few inconsistencies. Original Blue's Clues. I watched it a lot with my oldest nephew when he was a toddler. It bugged me Steve had a nice house and a backyard with no visible source of income. I decided that he'd suffered a head injury in an accident and was living off of the insurance settlement. That also explains his memory issues, like why he had to be reminded of the word notebook every single episode. To my first award. Thanks. Because it's not his house, it's his parents. Steve is a teenager. Steve leaves the show because he goes to college. So the previous seasons he was in high school. It's been a minute since I've seen it, but I remember being bothered by the way Anakin and Padme aged from episode 1 to 2. Like Anakin grew up a lot, and Padme not so much, but now they're about the same age, so that's cool I guess. It's a 5-year age difference. In episode I he is 9, and she is 14. In terms of growth development at those ages 5 years is quite a lot. But in episode 2 he is 19, and she is 24. They're both adults at that point. The difference in terms of developmental growth for 19 and 24 is quite small. At least physically. You can definitely see the 5-year age difference in episode 2 in terms of emotional growth though. I watched The Walking Dead up until the third King Tiger. I just couldn't handle it. Everyone, and like I mean everyone, was scrounging around for food, and you're telling me this guy had enough food to feed a ducking tiger for like IDK how long it was, but at least a year or 2. That's so much food. Because if he wasn't feeding the tiger then it would for sure kill and eat him. So everyone, all his friends are just cool with feeding this tiger hundreds of pounds of food, just so this one ducking guy can look cool. Duck that. Just so stupid. Also they killed off everyone I cared about. According to the comics, Shiva the tiger can eat walkers, as the virus doesn't affect animals as it does people. Since there are plenty of walkers, food isn't an issue for her. While it doesn't explain it in the show, I would omit is the same. Hedwig did not need to die. There were so many other options to duty him to the burrow, and they chose the most dangerous option for her. They very easily could have either had her fly to the burrow by herself, or if they didn't want her to potentially give them away by flying there, they could have transfigured her into something and kept her in their pockets. Regardless, her death was the most avoidable and pointless. That's part of why it hits so hard, though. It didn't have to happen, and she's gone in only a few sentences. Okay, I'm going to say it. I know everyone loves Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, but the Time Turner plot was a huge mistake. If wizards have a way to go back in time within the day, then why on earth didn't Dumbledore go back to save Lily and James and, let Harry grow up with his parents? Better yet, why didn't he use the time turner to avoid Voldemort's return and save Cedric's life? They were right there in the Ministry. By the 5th book, Rowling realized her mistake and had all the time turners be conveniently destroyed in the Battle of the Ministry. Because, of course, no one had borrowed a time turner around that time and all of them were stored at the same place. Sure, it's a classic grandfather paradox. If you go back in time and kill your grandfather, then you are never born. If you are never born, then you can never go back in time to kill your grandfather, so you are born and go back in time to kill your grandfather. But if Dumbledore went back in time to stop the death of Harry's parents, then he has no reason to go back in time in the present day to prevent their deaths. But if he never goes back in time, then Harry's parents die, so then he has a reason to go back. But if he goes back, then he has no reason to go back, and so on. Isn't time travel fun? Removed. The Hunger Games. Maybe I'm just stupid, but I don't get how District 13 survived both a famine and a plague, and still maintained a large population. Also, why didn't the tributes just work together in catching fire? Couldn't Haymitch have talked to all of them? Even the careers weren't loyal to the capital. Also, Jonah and Finnick are both bisexual. I can't tell you why, but it's just a feeling. I've been looking for a THG here lol. I think D13 still had a large population because they kept on recruiting those from other districts, just like Bonnie and Twill and Ike. It was mentioned, or I just stormed it lol, that they did struggle, and because of the nuclear, it became harder for them to procreate. Maybe some still want to make a good show and make it believable. Like, I think it was only Brutus, Gloss, and Kashmir, and a few others maybe, who were actually bad because everyone, even in Iberia, were like secret allies of some sort. I somehow agree with Johanna and Finnick, especially the latter, because his body was being sold in the capital by Snow. On Seinfeld, George and Susan are in bed watching an episode of Mad About You, but in a Mad About You crossover episode, Paul used to be Jerry's neighbor and is now subletting that apartment to Kramer. And there's an episode of Mad About You that has all of New York's public places deserted because everyone is at home watching the Seinfeld finale. Lord of the Flies. Biggie is nearsighted. His spectacles are a metaphor for the power of the human intellect to overcome nature and savagery. That they are used as a way to start fire is specifically intended to convey that rising above that savagery to achieve civilization requires the contribution of thinkers and self-examination and moral inquiry of intellectuals. Here's the thing though. Glees for nearsightedness cannot focus light into a point. Optically, they do the opposite. Goldman's central metaphor is fundamentally flawed. All I can picture is Nelson striking Milhouse's glees with a rock trying to get a spark to light the campfire, while Milhouse stumbles around in the background. The Simpsons is slowly replacing actual movies and literature in my memories, and I debate if I'm a better man because of it. Edit. Dang Nelson, not Martin. That's what I get for typing at 2 AM. Also, I vaguely remember an Eek the cat parody Catch the Beast. Purple hair. He will make a lovely chair. In The Office, Pam claims to have played volleyball in college, but the only indication that she ever attended college was when she went to art school and left. Similarly, Michael talks about attending parties with his professors, but we know he never got a degree. Both can be reconciled if we assume they attended college and left before receiving a degree, but I think they are better understood as inconsistencies. Michael could be lying. Let's face it, he's lying. In the Riordan verse, Percy and Annabeth skip a year of school. They go from sophomore year to senior. 10th grade to 12th grade. I believe that's year 11th and year 13th for those who use that system. This is a common one, but it bothers so many people. In a universe where demigods often have a life expectancy measured in months after turning 12, I guess it's okay for them to be on the fast track to school graduation. Accio Triwizard Cup. It worked in the graveyard. It would have worked in the maze. And it's the kind of Dumbledore Walder found hilarious. Could have been enchanted in the maze to prevent that. But I agree, if it could have been summoned with Axio, Dumbledore would have found that hilarious. Obi-Wan telling Luke he was trained by Yoda, but was actually trained by someone who can live for quite a bit after being stabbed and fecking up the entire universe. Yoda trains all the younglings before they are paired with their masters. Yoda is usually the one who helps young Jedi find their Kyber crystal for their lightsaber. Star Wars Expanded Universe pre-Disney. Once you understand how the multiple levels of canon work, and the way the EU had retconned many issues into making sense by roughly 2012, things were looking pretty good and far less patchy. Force Unleashed broke the law for how the rebellion was made, Force powers in general, and lots more. It was utterly ignored by the EU writers because of it, and basically wasn't really canon, since the novelization nerfed Starkiller back down to just being a really strong GD with no finesse. Still made no sense, so that doesn't count. Biggest problem then is probably the argument between many EU authors on the nature of the Force. Many believed older Lucas opinions, that the Force was not yin and yang, that the dark side was a perversion of the light, and that the dark, being unnatural, was what unbalanced the Force. Others cited the prequel era belief that it was more of a yin and yang thing, and this led to the whole grey GD thing that so many fans who think they're smart for escaping the light-dark dichotomy really liked. However, by the late years of the EU it was becoming apparent that through storytelling, exploration of characters, etc., it was kinda stupid for dark to be in any way natural. Between the original movies showing balance as being wiping out the Dark Empire graphic novel showing you cannot achieve good through the dark side, and many others, Star Wars was kind of inescapably good vs evil. But with decades of people trying to insert moral grayness into a good vs evil system, instead of insertion that moral grayness into the politics and world building, there just ended up being a lot of contradictions and literal decades of problems. Would have been nice to see how they would work it all out. Now we just see the same problem all over again, but in its infancy with Disney's work. There's a reason a lot of Star Wars fans are so jaded and negative, and seeing mistakes repeated is not helping us. So Pluto the dog can't talk, but Goofy the dog can. Mickey is best friends with Goofy, but owns a dog. That's messed up. There are a lot of comics, mainly those around Thanksgiving, where the ducks eat a duck. In Portal 2, you and Wheatley mess with the turret production line, so that the working turrets are thrown out, and effective turrets are used, so that GLaDOS won't be able to kill you with turrets later. However, after Wheatley takes control of the facility and becomes evil, he tries to use turrets against you, but they are still the defective turrets, and you're able to survive. But somehow immediately afterwards he's able to get working turrets. How? It could be explained that he fixed the turret production line after taking over, but he just showed that he didn't do that by using the defective turrets. That was explained by GLaDOS. Wheatley was just utilizing existing chambers that GLaDOS had inbuilt and stockpiled for later use. She also mentions that some of the tests that Wheatley uses were ones she had kept around as mementos of particularly difficult or lethal tests. Basically Wheatley was just utilizing turrets that were already in place from something GLaDOS had built. When he tries to kill you later on with turrets he took directly from the production lines, they end up being the defective ones, and he comments that he forgot that the turret production line was making crap turrets. That being said though, he does somehow manage to get the neurotoxin generator working again, which should be laying in the bottom of the enrichment center in an imploded heap. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, I wish they had answered the question about why they couldn't just fly east from the Earth Kingdom to get to the Fire Nation, or from the South Pole to the North Pole. Is their world flat? Is it round? It has never been answered. My personal theory, we've seen lion turtles be an integral part of the human origin story. In The Legend of Korra, we see that the first humans lived on lion turtles. In the episode where Aang learns to energy bend, we see that lion turtles are ageless creatures who have been around since the beginning. So, is the entire world a lion turtle? Do all of these struggles take place on a giant turtle floating through space? The world is actually supported by 4 immense elephant mandrills who stand atop the lion turtle's shell. The investigation of Percy's mom's boyfriend's disappearance. They barely even question her, and she isn't a prime suspect in his possible murder. This can be explained through manipulation of the mist to fool the mortals. Remember that chiz is like GD mind tricks, but can be used on the entire world at once, even fooling demigods on occasion. Duck you, J.J. Abrams, for demilitarizing the New Republic. Duck you. I'm not a super knowledgeable fan, so hopefully someone can explain this to me. The Empire was destroyed, the New Republic created, why the F is the First Order as strong as it is? And why does the New Republic do nothing? Like you said, where is their military? The Harry Potter universe has methods of instantaneous travel, apparition, portkeys, flu network etc., yet relies on long-range, manual animal travel for delivering messages. Why send an owl when you can just teleport over? You'd think that at some point wizards would have invented/adopted some form of instant communication. Magic mirrors that their godfather gave them, that they never bothered to use, for instance. This isn't a plot hole or whatever, but it annoys me. In Naruto, Sasuke is fighting Deidara and says himself that he's out of chakra and can barely move, while Deidara prepares to use his big C0 bomb with a 10km blast radius. Then in the 30 seconds or so before Deidara blows up, Sasuke manages to summon Manda, a big duck-off snake, hop in his mouth, and then reverse summon him to a different dimension. That's bullshit plot armor, and in any reality with consistency my man Deidara would have killed Sasuke and gone down as the greatest artist of all time. Sasuke is the biggest horse-chiz character. Not only should Deidara have killed him, but Killer Bee also should have killed him, and then Itachi. I can understand the motives behind Itachi not letting that happen, but the other two are just obvious plot armor. If the writing was better, Sasuke would have grown as a person, realizing how much his team saved Hiza and how much he needed them. But now let's just be edgy and treat everyone like chiz cause my brother's past was horrific. Doesn't even make sense, lol. It makes me mad because the storyline for Sasuke and all the Naruto series derailed pretty hard mid-Shippuden. There are so many confusing character/franchises to choose as a comic book fan, but I've got to give it to Wonder Woman. For those that don't know, DC tends to do soft reboots every once in a while, which makes continuity difficult to parse. But there are usually through lines, and little changes are explained by the continuity shift. Currently, they are trying to say all the old stories kind of did happen, and the 2011 reboot wasn't actually a hard reboot, like they tried to pitch it as. I realize this doesn't appear to make any sense, but in reality, for most characters, it actually works if you don't think too hard. But not for Wonder Woman. Every time they do any kind of reboot, her backstory is completely overhauled. Sometimes, not even when there's a continuity excuse. To the point where there are almost as many stories dealing with retconning her origins as there are stories about her doing her superhero thing in the last 10 years. And unlike Hawkman, there is no clever way to connect that disparity. Is she a clay golem given life by the gods? Is she the daughter of Zeus? Is she the daughter of Hercules? Who knows? And there's absolutely no way to reconcile the three. Is she a diplomat for Themyscira, trying to influence the UN to help with world peace? Nope, because someone recently decided she's never been back to Themyscira since the first time she left. And when was that? WW1? WW2? The Cold War? Sliding timescale of a while ago, but in modern times? No way to know, because Clay's stories have taken place in all those timelines. Really, none of her early stories could have possibly happened due to current retcons, yet she's been a hero for at least 10 plus years as a Justice League member, so it's just a waste, is what I'm trying to say. Writers lure of rewriting Superman's origin, but good god does it never stop for Wonder Woman. If they'd give her a few years to breathe and grow as a character instead of changing her origin, which inevitably changes again, she'd be much more popular, which she deserves. And at least Superman has 2+ ongoing books, even when they do decide to take his origin out for a spin in a new miniseries. At least she has her perfect costume, finally. The Flash is my favorite show, and a lot of the time I just let things go. It's a fiction universe and all that, and sometimes the writers screw up character development. There hasn't been anything super huge for me that I got hung up on. The only thing I ever complained about was from like Episode 5, and it was a scientific inaccuracy. Again, I'll let a lot of this stuff go. I know science doesn't really work like they make it in the show. It's based on real ideas usually, but it just wouldn't happen that way. But I just sigh they couldn't even keep the basics right. I realized it in a college level physics class. The character was a doctor, MD and PhD. They actually retconned the MD later, so it was just PhD at retime, but still. And they were talking about the Flash running up the building. And they were all like, yeah, it could work, like, okay, yeah, I can see it. Then Miss Doctor is just like, but you have to keep the same velocity going up as coming down, you a dead bitch, paraphrasing just a bit. The important thing here is that she said velocity. Keeping the same velocity going up and coming down. Guys, velocity is directional. You cannot physically have the same velocity if you change directions. What she meant was speed. They just wanted her to sound smart. This is the stupidest thing I've ever gotten upset about in a TV show, and it doesn't even really bother me anymore, but like, at the time I was just so pissed about it, I don't even know why. Edit. I feel I have made a mistake in posting this. I'm aware there are a lot of inaccuracies and storylines in the show. I just choose to look past them. This was just a rather funny memory of mine from when I was watching the show early on. I don't actually think it's a big deal, and I think that stressing over details in the show takes the fun out of it for me. Yes, the show takes a lot of liberties, channing how things work for when the show needs it to work that way. There have been some really stupid episodes as a result, but also some really great ones. Edit 2. I've been told that I was apparently wrong anyway, but I want to clarify that I'm no expert and haven't done physics since high school. I was sharing this because it was easier than ranting for the equivalent of several pages, and I thought it WAA funny how much it stuck with me. So whether I'm wrong or not I don't really know for sure, but it doesn't matter anyway. The point was, the show gets even pretty basic seems wrong whether or not this was a good example. I love Flash, but the biggest nonsensical thing is how every time a crime happens the Flash runs to the spot and just stops to introduce himself or let the bad guy monologue. Like, WTF, you're so fast you slow down time for everyone. You could literally speed to the crime in 5-6 and handcuff the bad guys, or even use the metered happening cuffs before you even introduce yourself, to not let them get away or have a chance to cause any damage. Then the other big inconsistency is the fact they can get away. Half the time the bad guys get away due to the Flash letting them monologue is by using some big flash or something to stun him for like 5 seconds, and he just gets up and goes, oh no, I can't see them anymore, they must have got away. Like, WTF, you have super speed. You could literally search the total 500 feet they probably traveled in 0.5 seconds and find them. Love the show, but those are the two big glaring issues I hate. Minecraft I've been playing for like 5 to 6 years, and the fact that I haven't been able to figure out who the two people that talk to you during the credits are, and the fact that the player can hold an infinite amount of pounds. My man Steve breaks trees with his bare hands. In Futurama, how does Leela not understand why that one guy's a whale biologist? She used to aim people their jobs, because all occupations are based on what you're best at, not what you want. You gotta do what you gotta do. His response is equally baffling, though hilarious. I don't know you well enough to get into that. It was aimed to you. Speaking of Futurama and whales, in the first season they established that everything runs on whale oil, not dark matter too. This is because when they stopped poaching them the number of whales exploded, as did their desire for human flesh, to the point where people couldn't go into the real ocean anymore because it was too dangerous. Cut to an episode that takes place entirely in the Atlantic Ocean. Edit. Whale oil was established in season 3, ending in the wind and ocean full of man-eating whales in season 1 when aliens attack. In Elder Scrolls Online, the Ebonhood Pact consists of the Nord, Dunmer and Argonian peoples. The Nords and Dunmer are highly discriminate of each other, fighting over territory for centuries. The Argonians have been, and currently are, used as slaves by the Dunmer. But because they occupy a region of the map, they're grouped together in an alliance. Nobody gives a ref about slavery. Well, it's explained that the pact was originally formed to fight off the Akaviri invasion. I mean, yeah, the three provinces don't really like each other, but what's worse than your neighbor attacking you? Some better fighting dude from across the sea attacking you, Mayo. It stuck around after the Akaviri were defeated because they proved to be quite strong allied together. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.